Good morning, everybody. This is Gavin Townsend with Nici, and you've got a new last name.
I do. Although I cannot remember it myself to keep saying it, so I keep sticking with Johnson. But it is Keppen now, officially.
So cool, Mrs. Keppen. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And we're here today, guys. Thanks for tuning in with Keeping It Real Estate here on WBTA. And today we're going to be talking about keeping it real, but pricing it in today's market.
But, like, keeping it real.
Keep it real, folks, right? So you can imagine, as a real estate agent here in the Glow region, I get questions all the time from buyers and sellers about what's up with this price. Is that realistic?
Yes.
Or what should I price my home for? Or sellers assuming I'm going to price it like it was priced 3 years ago. So, these are the things that we need to discuss and talk about today. My kind of call to sellers is if you're waiting for the perfect buyer to fall in love with your house in today's market, that's not what's holding things up. And here's why. It's because it's about pricing. It's about buyer behavior and why homes are sitting a little bit longer in today's market than sellers expect in comparison to a year or two ago.
Yeah.
So it's, pricing it high and being patient is not a strategy. You need to price it right. And again, I understand that some sellers say, well, I'm not in a hurry.
That and the emotional attachment that some people have, I think, is so hard to break that barrier because they believe personally what the house is valued at. And, and of course, it's hard to argue with somebody who knows.
And that's right. Or they have that attachment. They know what they've done to the home, all those things. But at the end of the day, it's about properties, not people. It's the data and the market speaks. And so obviously I work with sellers all the time with that very emotional element. But we do need to have a little bit of a reality check if you want to be successful in the market. And again, it doesn't mean that you're looking for a quick sale. I know sellers, you're looking for the right sale, but there's a lot of things we have to think about. So let's break it down a little bit with what's going on in the Glow region right now.
Okay.
In comparison to the nation, which we know we're a little bit of a bubble and we lag, but in the Glow region, we're taking about 30 days on average, a little higher to go under contract, which is still swift.
Yeah, I was going to say that is still fast.
It really is because the national average is about 60 days per August data. So, it's a little bit longer. It's about 7 days longer than it was this time last year. But again, no one should be alarmed. But I think people are so trained, especially buyers, like, what happens if it didn't sell in 30 seconds or less? Nothing. It's just we're returning to a more normalized market, a more balanced market. So, another thing to note, it's the 17th straight month, year over year, of increased time on the market. Oh. So we've been in the middle of this trend.
Yeah.
Nationwide, in the Glow region is part of that we have seen for 17 straight months, year over year, increases in time on the market. So, if the house doesn't sell in 3 days or less now, we're not there anymore. We were there at a time when there was really low interest rates and super low inventory, and people were almost buying out of frivolity, not necessarily necessity.
Yeah.
And now we're back to a more normalized market where we're buying and selling out of necessity. Okay? So, that's where we are. And so buyers and sellers, you've got to know that information. So more homes on the market gives more buyer choice. We do have more inventory nationwide and in the Glow region than we have had in a long time.
Okay.
So buyers have more choice. And now they can actually compare property to property. There might actually be a comp for your home now where there maybe wasn't one before. Oh. Okay, and buyers become a lot more savvy. They're working with their agents. They have maybe missed out on opportunities. They are pumping the brakes a little bit. They're looking at the data. And even if they love your house, they're just not willing to overspend like they were a long time ago or a few years ago, especially because the interest rates have changed.
Exactly. And we had talked about the interest rates, I don't know if it was last week or a couple weeks before then, that interest rate fluctuating down slightly.
Yes.
Is it still?
Yes. And so we're, at this point in time, we are in the mid sixes.
Okay.
And maybe with a hope for them to go a little bit lower. And we hope that trend persists a bit into 2026.
Okay.
We don't know to be sure, but we are certainly lower. We're the lowest rates we've had in about 1 to 2 years.
Great.
So that's great. But so when you think about all these things, really what then is the biggest factor? It's pricing, guys. It's pricing.
It's important. It definitely is one of those things where a lot of sellers, I guess, it makes or breaks the time, obviously, that it's on the market, but also I guess it's hard and it's tough because I can't help but to think, as I've never been a seller, I've been a buyer. And as a buyer, I've never had the opportunity or been in that situation where I've had that tough, I have no choice but to pay what they want me to pay.
Yes, and I think when we have this balancing market now where sellers have really had control of the market for a long time.
Exactly.
Now we're seeing a little bit of a shift. It's still good news for buyers and sellers. I think everybody, and we're going to unpack some more things in this episode today, but I think this is good news all around. You just got to be smart, you got to be savvy, you got to be aware. So let's kind of unpack the pricing shift that we're seeing right now.
Okay.
Average list prices have been steady for the last few years. Ever since we had that really, what I call the seller's market on steroids, 2020, 2021. So it's different now, unlike the surge that we had in 2021 and 2022.
Yeah.
We're now in 2025, and average list prices are kind of steadying out. Sellers that remember that boom, still might think of those list prices back in the day. Well, my neighbor 2 years ago sold for this. But if you're doing that now and applying it to today's market, you're overshooting.
So I'm curious because at the time, say there was a house in 2020 that had sold for maybe $20,000 over what it originally would have been listed at this day. And the neighbor today is now going to sell. They potentially would be selling it at the realistic price of what they should be selling it now.
Well, they should be looking at the data, and they should be working with their buyer to see what in the last 6 months to a year, not longer, unless we really have a unique property that we have to comp differently.
Okay.
But if you've got a house, we go by bedrooms, baths, neighborhood, all these other indicators, and really find a like-kind property to compare it with, it could be, and it should be in the last 6 months to a year.
Okay.
Right? So
and
that's
the tough line because a lot of people, still rely on that 2020.
And as I mentioned earlier, buyers are so much more sensitive to price now.
Yeah.
Because they've seen how things are sitting on the market, and they realize that they don't have to maybe quickly get there within 1 to 2 days and overspend on an offer. So they're very sensitive to price because they have more options now and they have less urgency.
Okay.
You've heard me say on the show time and time again, I'll continue to say it, buyers have to think like sellers have to think like buyers. So the bottom line is homes priced even a little bit too high get skipped and overlooked. They might not even go look at your home if they have an inkling that it's just overpriced. They've got a budget they're paying attention to, the buyers.
Yeah.
They are withstanding this, and they're dealing with this interest rate, even though it's coming down a bit. They have a budget. They've run their numbers if they're smart buyers working with a great agent and a great lender, and they just know, I'm not going to fall victim to the dangle candy in front of the baby scenario. I'm just going to eliminate that house because it's out of my budget.
Right. Yeah.
So when you refine that number of eligible buyers for your home because you've priced it too high for what the comps indicate, you can hope and pray that we're going to have a fast one here and pull a rabbit out of a hat, and it can happen. Never say never, but you're going to refine your buyer pool. So that's what is going to add to days on the market, really serious buyers. It's not about the circus of having 12 showings and 30 people at the open house anymore. It's certainly about the right buyer, but you might have less of them because you've overpriced.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So signs that you may have overpriced your home. Okay.
Yes.
What's that mean? Because we can sit down, and obviously I offer complimentary seller consultations. Other agents do too, but really review those numbers. But maybe you're mid-listing and you're wondering, is my house priced too high? There's 4 red flags. You have few or no showings.
Okay.
Okay. And I would say the first 2 weeks of a listing are critical.
Okay,
no matter what the market.
What's the time frame?
No matter what the market.
Okay.
And as we get into the cooler months, maybe even 3 weeks to a month. But if it's crickets the first 2 weeks, that should tell you a lot of things. It might not be price. It might be the way it's presented, and we've talked about that in other episodes. Today we're talking price. But if you have few or no showings, that's a red flag.
Okay.
If you have no offers or really lowball offers the first 30 days on the market, that should tell you something too.
Okay.
Okay?
Right.
That's red flag number 2. No offers or lowball offers. Red flag number 3. overly negative buyer feedback.
Yes.
Okay? Because maybe they love the location of your home and it's got great curb appeal, et cetera. But when they actually go to tour that home with their agent, and they have feedback and they're seeing things. You can't, as I tell my buyer clients all the time, you can't smell listings online. You can't hear them. You finally go, you have to see the home. And once you do, maybe they're picking up on things that are not cost effective given the list price. So that overly negative buyer feedback is a red flag too, that you're overpriced.
Okay.
And then as we've discussed before, days on the market well above average. And I'm not saying, oh my goodness, it's been on the market for 14 days. What's wrong? I'm saying it's been there for 6 months. It's been there for 3 months. And you still don't have an offer or showings, or you're getting negative feedback. That should be a signal to you no matter what kind of market we're in. Okay, so those are the red flags that, you might be overpriced. And so my takeaway on that for you sellers is that waiting it out won't fix it, but adjusting the price will. What can you control? You can't control the location of your home, right?
Yeah.
You can control as a seller the condition. If you're willing to pour more money into it, replace countertops, take the advice and guidance of your agent to say, well, the feedback we're getting is they hate that stained carpet. Maybe we make improvements. You do have control over that, sellers, but you might not want to invest more money in the house you're trying to sell.
But then you would take off the initial, right?
You could, but what you do have control over is the price. So of those 3 indicators, price, condition, location, you can't control the location. You can't up and move your home. You can improve the condition, but you probably have a budget you're sticking to with sellers. What you can control is the price. And so weighing it out won't fix it, but the price will.
So I'm curious because, very often a seller will come to an agent, correct? And they kind of have you come in. And do you find as an agent that when you go to get a new listing that potentially a seller will kind of say to you they already have a number in mind?
Yep. Great question, Nici. So they will, or sometimes they say, I have no idea. You're the professional, Gav. Tell me what it is.
Okay.
But a lot of times they will, because I find that most people are intrigued and interested in real estate. I know that most people go online and look at listings on those third-party sites. It's fun. It's interesting. I think a lot of people watch HGTV and things like that. So I think people have an idea in their head. And I have to say that a lot of times sellers aren't completely bonkers off on it. They usually have a good idea.
Realistically idea?
They can. And if they're realistic and they listen to your feedback and maybe your comparables as an agent do align with what the seller thinks and everybody's very reasonable, that's a great conversation to have. Sometimes the agent might be higher than what the seller is projecting.
Wow.
So it's that conversation of really looking at the data to determine what's going to be the best list price. And again, it's always down to the motivation of the seller. If the seller says something like, well, I'm not in a hurry, I really want to try this price, the agent might say, that's great. I don't have any data to support that. And they may or may not take the listing. Okay. But they also might say, let's give it a try. But if that doesn't, let's agree on a time frame. If we don't get activity and or an offer within 30 days, 60 days, can we agree that we need to go back to my number based on the comparables? And at that point, you really should be running comparables again. That's not a one and done thing. When I'm working with agents, with sellers, and my sellers will tell you, they're getting basically a weekly update from me in regards to what's going on in the market. So, then that's an opportunity to adjust your price later. And there's no shame in that because we're seeing a lot of price adjustments now. Yeah. And that could be a whole other conversation too.
And then, of course, winter weather as opposed to summer weather.
Seasonality. Yep. That's right. So we got to prepare. And again, seller motivation. If we're going into the end of the year here and you want to sell sooner than later, then we need to price it competitively. Yep. We need to make it attractive to buyers. Okay. So my solution in your empowerment sellers, this is good stuff. This isn't, punishment for you guys. There's solutions to this to understand how to price your home. Work with your agent and price it in line with today's market, not yesterday's and not pandemic levels.
Yes.
Ain't working anymore, folks, okay? We're way beyond that. Nobody wants to hear about COVID anymore. We want to talk about what's real and what's reality today, right? Keeping it real. Even small price adjustments can attract new buyer interest, like I just said. So let's say, Mr. Seller, Mrs. Seller, you really wanted to try this price. It was maybe $5,000 to $10,000 over what your agent had suggested. But let's try it and let's see if it makes a difference if we then reduce it by 5 or 10, maybe 2-3 weeks later when we don't have activity. Just a small incremental thing.
Right.
You shouldn't be listing it really high in the sky anyway. It should, when I have a conversation with sellers about pricing, I present a range. And the range is here's the low end, here's the medium, and here's the high. If you go for that high range right away, and that doesn't work in the first few weeks on the market, depending on your motivation sellers, then maybe we go back to that lower range and see what we get. Okay? So, and here's the other thing. It's good news for you sellers. Let's remember, at the end of the day, that your equity has likely grown significantly in the last 5 to 10 years on your home, depending on how long you've owned it. Mm-hmm. If you just bought a couple years ago and you didn't stay there very long, you're already selling, that's a cautionary tale in and of itself. But you win no matter what, sellers, because your equity probably has grown significantly.
Yeah.
Okay? So I'm not saying don't be greedy, but I think you're winning no matter what you do, sellers. You've got a house to sell, and we still have low inventory.
Exactly. Yeah, we're still in that bubble, as you say.
Yeah,
so
I
it
think
is
so.
Still helpful no matter what, yeah.
Yeah, so I think they're still winning no matter what when you sell today. You've got a property to sell. It's a great investment. You've got an opportunity. You've got to price it right. So just remember that patience isn't the strategy, but pricing is.
I agree.
And that's why it's all about pricing right. So if your home isn't selling, it's not moving, the market has spoken. Okay? The market's telling you something. So the right price is what changes everything. You need to talk to your agent about what buyers are willing to pay right now so that your home stands out for the right reasons. We don't want to make history that you've got the longest days on the market ever and the highest priced house ever, right? Unless that really is deserving, we go from there. So, this is me keeping it real about pricing. If you have questions.
I have a question.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm just going to throw this out. Is there a house that has history like that has a history?
I'm sure there is in
You don't
every
know off the top of your
market.
head?
No,
Okay.
I'm sure there is in every market.
I wanted to hear those numbers.
And you know what? Sometimes that just tells you that seller they'll sell it if they get this. And you get a seller like that. You've got to find an agent that is comfortable from their business perspective to take that listing on.
Yeah.
And that can be a whole other episode too. And the sellers, at the end of the day, that is your property. You are able to sell that and ask for what you want to. It's your property. But if you're working with an agent, that agent may or may not want to work with you. 100%. And you may or may not culminate in a sale right away. But that's okay if that's not what your plan is.
You're absolutely right.
But if you do want a real estate success story sooner than later, and most do, give me a buzz at 585-344-1321 and schedule your complimentary seller consultation. Buyers too, this pricing conversation is meaningful to you as well in this market. So I'm happy to discuss with that the same things with you as well, buyers. So give me a buzz. We're keeping it real. Estate here on WBTA. Thanks for tuning in today to talk about pricing it right.
I love it. And as always, thank you so very much, Miss Gavin. And we will be back next week. Have a wonderful week and enjoy this day.